The lesson is called Love and the Law, but the main issue that we are starting with is favoritism.
Yeah. And James is back on the issue of rich and poor members in the church. This is the second time since we started looking into the book of James, when James talks about rich and poor, two different groups. And what he's saying that there is a discrimination. They get different treatment. Some of them are offered a front seat, some of them are offered to sit at the ground on the ground. Reflection from the social order in the society out in the world.
What's wrong with that? Maybe it's just protocol.
Seems that James is not only disturbed but strongly opposes this worldview that can damage the spirit of oneness that is in the church, something that is fighting to guard the principles of Jesus, the principle that Jesus stood for. And he was not politically correct at all.
Who is James talking to? Is it the middle class? I don't know. But with these social divisions, many different rules and expectations come to play, and they distort things, they distort relationships. Values are put in completely different order, and we have a different game, one that actually Jesus came to change.
God has chosen the poor in the eyes of the world, James says, and this is what also Jesus defended when he was alive. James is fighting the stereotypes in his community at his time. He's asking the questions, aren't the rich exploiting you? Aren't they the ones who are dragging you out to court? Open your eyes, look. See through the eyes of God, he says. And at the end he asks, aren't they the one who blaspheme the noble name of the one that you belong to? Trying to convince people that there is something wrong there.
James is very strong on his position for favoritism. And it seems to me that through it we exercise a judgment. We judge by making a selection. We actually decide the values that we are putting forward. And it seems that these values are completely the opposite of what Jesus sacrificed himself for. We are taking a stand.
And favoritism is a sin, says James. It's a breaking of the law. And what is the law if not expression of love? But love does not choose its recipient. Love does not discriminate as per your bank account, how much money you have there. People do. And sin does discriminate.
There's some very interesting and powerful text about the law that follows here in the text. But it seems to me that James' intention is not to explain or defend the law, but rather to make a point to people who take the law very seriously. And he's telling them that if you do this, you do that, but you miss a certain point, you're doing anything. So at the end, for me, the message is you can't be partial.
So the law is a whole thing, but also the law is relational, meaning that its obedience is based on the relationship between me and God, my relationship with people. This is what motivates the works that come out of me. And simply good deeds can keep you in a vacuum where all revolves around you otherwise.
Most of our relationships are based on our perceptions about the people that we relate to. But if we are looked as how we are not a very pretty picture. We are given mercy, and through Jesus, through Christ, our dependency of sin is broken. We are offered liberty. We see here the law that gives freedom. But how do we exercise this in our relationships with others?
Yes, the text says, speak and act as those who are going to be judged by the law that gives freedom, because judgment without mercy will be shown to anyone who has not been merciful. So here actually James opens a whole new door and question, is it by law or by faith that we're judged by? It's a tricky question, and James is not absolutely clear here. We're going to find this later probably.
The end, however, is very clear. Mercy will triumph over judgment. Some very profound material and food for personal thoughts. Thanks, James. Until next week.